I want to talk to him about the John Oliver thing in general for this because this is not just.
I want to be filled in because I only read a little bit about it.
And he's saying there's breaking news.
He said there's breaking news with the WWE and John Oliver, so I want to hear that.
Not April Fools.
No, not April Fools. So we're gonna bring Ryan Satin from Pro Wrestling Sheet in here to talk about it because this thing was awesome what he did last night. I'm not a fan of John Oliver. I've just never been like a big fan. And so here's basically the breakdown of it. John Oliver on his show did a 20-minute kind of editorial on the WWE, and it wasn't like a Bill Maher thing. Like Bill, come on in, Ryan. You got a mic? They're going to give you a mic. Just sit in the back there. Yeah.
You want to pull that?
Yeah. So
you can take mine. I'm not using it today.
You know what? You're actually not wrong. Why don't you go sit on it? I love you to death, but you're terrible today. So why don't you
go in the corner?
Let Ryan.
Nice way to start your Monday.
While you're in the corner, do you really want my phone?
No, it's
no.
Sit in the corner. You've been unfunny today.
It's not unfunny. He literally has just been in another universe at this point. I don't even know where he is. He doesn't know where he is. All right. Listen, so I'm going to break it down first, then we're going to get Ryan's take on this thing too,
Well, I have some breaking news on it actually too.
Let me set it up. Give me the breaking news. So John Oliver basically yesterday did like a 22-minute editorial on the WWE, and when he started into it, because I don't know enough about John Oliver that I didn't know what take he was coming in, so I was a bit. My dukes were up as a wrestling fan to where I thought it was going to be a Bill Maher thing, where he's like, all right, here he goes. There's another guy who's just going to shit on wrestling, and because Bill Maher is the biggest douchebag on the planet, and so when he comes in, even when he had the wrestlers on back in the day, he was trying to fight them. He was trying to, he's antagonistic the whole time.
That's not even close to the worst thing that Bill Maher.
He's just a horrible human. He's a trash bag. But anyway. So I was curious if that's what John Oliver was going with this. And right off the bat, it was not that. He was throwing out references. It wasn't just like, I respect what they're doing, but no, he was throwing out references of somebody who definitely watched wrestling throughout his career, and he likes it. And he was giving a lot of props to things that
also
happened.
Keep in mind, he has a writing staff.
Either way,
it's not all just. Clearly, there's some sort of smark on on his writing staff.
Yes, but the thing is, you can't. But I can also tell you,
smark like a.
Yeah. They're playing.
It's a wrestling thing.
So is that like a mark?
It's like a smart mark. It's
it's basically someone who knows their history that's helping him give stuff.
It's like a smart mark.
Okay. But my point is, though, you can't. You might have a good writing staff, but you still have to be able to sell it.
Totally.
And you also have to be able to know what you're talking about, because I can tell you that if someone started giving me facts about Pokemon inside there, I know that Cody can write me all the things I need to say, but people are going to be able to say whether or not he doesn't know it that well. John Oliver knows his shit, and he's going through it, and he's talking about it. But the main part of this whole thing was the fact that really calling Vince McMahon out and saying that Vince McMahon is horrible and has been horrible to his wrestlers. The fact that they are these independent contractors, which is crazy. They're not employees. They're independent contractors, and it's been like that for 30-some-odd years. I love the stuff that he showed, the footage of Jesse Ventura, like that one interview, and Vince slaps the
How long's the clip?
22 minutes.
Yeah.
It's 20. It's worth a watch. You don't have to be a wrestling fan to watch it, because what he's calling for is health insurance for these wrestlers, because there's a problem. There's a problem with these wrestlers. They're dying. They all die young.
Yeah.
Well, they don't all die young.
A lot of them die young. It broke my heart because Roddy Piper was a friend of mine. He was a close friend, and I had seen that clip of Roddy before, who was saying that I'm not going to live to 65, and he didn't. And they talked because there's just certain things that Vince does not include to these people, and I love the NFL when he's like, if NFL is doing it better than you have problems, But anyway, it was he encouraged the fans of WrestleMania which I thought was brilliant. At the end, where he's just like, I'm not saying say anything, but if you want to create signs and you want to do chants, maybe it's the time to do it. It's a very abridged version of what I saw last night, but. It caught fire. People were talking about it. What's the breaking news?
Oh, well, the breaking news is that WWE just invited John Oliver to WrestleMania.
Wow.
They want to teach him, they want to show him more about the company and give him a better outlook on how the current company is. Because I do think, for me at least, I thought it was a great segment. I think the things that he talked about as it pertains to the independent contractor status are totally on the money. It is messed up for these people to be considered independent contractors. I think it's very silly that they have to follow all the rules of an employee, but they're not considered employees, so they don't get retirement pension. They don't get annual leave.
They're exclusive.
They don't get exactly. They're exclusive. They can't. They have to ask permission to do interviews. They have to ask permission to do anything.
Which makes you not an independent contractor.
Right.
100% not. And so I've never understood it. I've never thought it was cool. So when it comes to that, 100%. Some of the other stuff that was within the segment that frustrated me a little bit was using like outdated clips. Like, it's a lot of outdated clips. There's a lot of like stuff from before they tried to
2002.
Yeah, a lot of stuff prior to when they tried to make it more of a PG product. So a lot of that stuff, like Vince McMahon saying the N-word on TV, like we haven't seen anything like that in like a decade or more. He
still said
bad.
it.
No, he said it. Terrible things.
Yeah.
It wasn't good. I'm just saying that, like, I just wish that some of the stuff they had covered were a little more recent. Like when they talked about wrestlers dying young.
Yeah.
And the chart they used was from like 2013, or like when they were talking about the wrestlers who died young, they talked about Macho Man who died in a car crash and had nothing to do with anything related to healthcare or anything like that. Yeah, he had a heart attack while driving, but I think that was probably more from partying and drug use probably, but not necessarily from getting slammed.
No, but I mean, you don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
That's
but it
hard
wasn't. But from what we see, it wasn't because of WWE mistreating him or anything like that. Even China, she was a drug. It was drug overdose. And so.
But what he was saying though, he was saying is that they didn't have enough medical help to be able to.
But therapy is covered in that.
Yeah, but if you show people who died for drug-related purposes, I think it's a little unfair because the WWE has a great policy when it comes to that. Like literally any talent who's been there for a day to 10, 15 years, they get free rehab, they treat them, they help them, they get them back.
Health insurance,
but they're not getting paid during that time.
I'm talking about like people that are out. Yeah, well, if they're in the company, they are, and if they're not, they're getting free rehab.
Jake
when
the
they're
Snake
way
Roberts
line.
should have been like the fact that he had to do a fundraiser or a crowdfund to get his money for that surgery is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon should have paid for that himself. He put so many asses in seats. He was such a huge personality. Like Vince McMahon should absolutely be taking care of these people after they leave.
But what if they? I mean, to play devil's advocate here, because I do think they should have healthcare while they're working for the company and stuff like that. But like. It's not like Jake the Snake didn't keep working after WWE. Like we don't. Who knows what happened to his body and where that actual injury happened after the fact when he wrestled for other companies and independents and shitty rings. And so I don't know if it's necessarily 100% fair to say that's all on WWE when Jake also made terrible life decisions and and stuff like that. So I just don't know if I do think that while working for the company, they 100% should have health care. Yeah. They should have annual leave. They should have all the kind of stuff.
All year long.
They're on TV. Like they're television stars. They should be getting no break, but they should be getting like some of the perks that some of the television stars get.
If not more, they say it's like getting in a car crash every single night.
I'll tell you what,
though. You need a little more vacation than the average person, and you're getting none.
This is another reason I think AEW is very is something very exciting because. As we've heard, that they're going to take a more kind of sports approach, like the old school way with rankings and champions and things like that. If that catches, the WWE is going to do very similar to what they did with WCW, is that they might try to combat it and do something. Maybe or maybe not. Depends on...
I think more importantly is the fact that AEW, to this argument and this debate, is that AEW has said a few things in some of their press conferences. One of them is they've said that they firmly believe in equal pay and that they are going to be, obviously every single person that works on the show is not being paid equal, but like equal to where you stand on the card. And obviously where you stand on the card is a creative decision made by certain people, but like in terms of popularity is kind of how they worded it like so that way basically like the main event women aren't making less than the main event men and vice versa. On top of that, they have insinuated the fact they are trying to figure out how they can have health care for their wrestlers.
Right. But where I was going with that though was with if it goes back and forth and they have battles again, like we hope that they will, because competition just makes the product better in general. But what I'm hoping happens is that maybe, and I don't know if AEW will do this also, but maybe that they do give more of like a seasonal thing with their wrestlers, right? To where I saw some suggestion too, where maybe some of the wrestlers go from January until I don't know.
I highly doubt that, but I do think the schedule will be a little less extreme.
Lighter.
It's gonna be a little lighter, obviously, because they're not going 24/7.
I would hope so, and you guys know I have a ton of friends who work for WWE, and I've brought things like this up to them all the time, and what they say to me is like, this is a dream come true. We've worked our entire careers to get here. We're not going to complain about jack shit. Whatever they give us, we're going to take and we're going to smile about it because we are the lucky ones. And I think that what you're talking about, Christian, is the opportunity to be the lucky ones elsewhere and kind of elevate that, because right now they have no choice. This is the cream of the crop. This is the top place. And if you get to be so lucky, you just kind of take it because you're like, independent contractor, I don't care. Like, this is the dream. So if there is a place that is offering not this independent contractor status, which is ludicrous and does give even some vacation or anything, that's going to make the WWE think twice about it. And then people are going to be able to get what they deserve, not just what's given to them because that's what the dream is.
And to be fair, just to be honest, like from what I've heard, AEW is signing people as independent contractors too. So I don't want to paint them as like doing something special and different.
How do they get away with that? How?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Just the way the business is run right now.
That's how it's always ran. I've always thought it was bullshit. Like I've
well,
always
they tried to
thought
unionize.
that.
They tried to unionize. Jesse Ventura tried to unionize back, and I've seen the interview, and then they mentioned it on that thing last night. But he tried to unionize back in, like, I think it was like 87, 86, 87. He tried. Hogan ratted him out to Vince. And him and Hogan were boys, and he didn't know. And then at the trial, during the steroid trial, they brought up like the unionized thing, and Vince was like, "Yeah, I know Jesse was trying to do that." Like, how'd you know that? He's like, Hogan told me. Like, just ratted Hogan out right there too. And Jesse was
it's
like,
one of the reasons the wrestlers didn't like Hogan for a long time because he basically put the kibosh
he
on
didn't need a
union because he didn't need it.
No, he was making more than 20 of the guys all together.
But I don't get if AEW is trying to do it differently, then why are they doing this? And what is the benefit for not the company but the wrestlers? Like, is there any benefit? Because as an independent contractor, you have a ton of benefits because you get to do everything you want. In wrestling, you don't. So,
well, for AEW, from what I've heard, they are going to have more of those flexibility. Like, there's guys like a guy named Joey Janela where he has his own independent events that he runs WrestleMania weekend called Spring Break, and they're like, no, go do your thing still. As long as like we can reel you in when we need you, great type thing. That I believe there are some who are on different contracts. Like from what I've heard, from what I've been told and stuff, is that. Like Cody, the Young Bucks, Adam Page, Christopher Daniels, like some of those guys who are like the main guys starting the company right now, they're all on staff on like actual office positions. Like they are employees, and right now like they're signing.
You think they're starting the whole thing?
Totally. So they're like on actual like healthcare benefits, all that kind of stuff. But they're like you said, they're starting the whole thing. It's a little different. From what I've heard. And from what they've said at the press conferences is like we're getting people under contract so that we can reel them in independent wise. Like they can still go do other things or whatever as long as we can use them. We have first dibs basically. And then beyond that, like I think that they are working to get a healthcare plan for. I'm not great when it comes to healthcare things, but like they're working to get a healthcare plan for all their employees. So they're working to get one that all their people can. Technically, they're all covered, even though they're independent contractors. From the way I've heard, and that's I mean WWE, to their defense, does. When someone gets hurt, they pay for a lot of that stuff. They help them.
That's also for them.
That's also for them in liability, 100,000%.
And to make sure that their product is continuing to move so someone gets healthy.
So
1,000%.
But all of these wrestlers right now, like tax season, they're all 1099s. They're all paying.
It's crazy.
It's
Dude, check this out. I thought this was. I didn't, and I probably should have. But there's a guy.
Hold that though, Ryan. Hold that just for a second, because the other thing too, going back to even what Ryan was just saying about AEW, right? Doing this and saying you can go and do whatever you have to do, but we want first dibs. That's also on a business side. That's risky because let's say you have Jericho. I think is probably an employee, right? Ryan?
Yes,
okay.
With Jericho for AEW, yes.
Okay, so let's say he's not.
He might be in the independent contractor status.
Right, let's just say he's independent. And Jericho, who's in his 40s, right? You say, or late 40s, and you say to him, all right, you want to go wrestle in Japan? Okay, good. We just need you for next month. This isn't he's not playing movie trivia in
could
Japan.
Get injured.
If a 48-year-old guy goes over to Japan and I have him in my event next week and he gets hurt, then my event's fucked. So it behooves you to make them exclusive, but how do you do that morally if they're independent contractors?
Well, that's been what a lot of people say about AEW is that like how it's a risky gamble because like you're gonna have some guy wrestling at some shitty indie show because you're letting him do it and then he gets injured and your whole show is fucked and you're paying the guy now.
Other than health insurance though, which is an added expense, absolutely. But why doesn't the company want to make these employees? What are they losing? Why?
I think it's being able to sue. I think I feel like it's suing.
It's suing, but it's also you keep somebody. It's also you have somebody as an employee and all this money that you have to spend on them for.
Yeah, you gain money when you don't have to pay people health care, when you don't have to pay retirement pension.
That's one thing. The other thing is too, if they want to cut somebody, it's like a matter because it's a lot easier to just cut
Yep.
an independent contractor than as an employee.
Because you don't have to pay out the rest of their
Paperwork.
contract. Or
No
whatever.
severance pay. No.
Right.
Yeah.
All of that.
He's
stuff.
awake.
Yeah.
I just wish we had somebody more passionate about wrestling in here to talk about it.
But that's the truth though.
It's so effed
You know
up.
what?
That's
I
why he
thought-
doesn't want a union.
I
Yeah.
thought this was interesting too. Is that after this piece came out, a former so like WWE now they have the Performance Center, which is like where they train the rest. Like they sign wrestlers to contracts and then they put them in the Performance Center basically, and it's got this like fancy state of the art facility, and basically they train them there and then they bring them up when they're ready to the main roster.
Is
And
that the one in Florida?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I thought this was super interesting. I honestly didn't even think about this. A former NXT announcer did a whole thread about the John Oliver thing, and he was talking about how it's not just
Who?
the wrestlers either. His name's Alex Del Barrio, and he was talking about how it's not just the wrestlers. Like it's announcers, that it's the coaches behind the
Right.
scenes at the Performance Center. It's the agents. It's it's not the writers. They're part of the employee, but it's all those types of people too. And you're like, well, wait, those people have a time they have to be there.
Yeah.
They have meetings they have to
Right.
abide by. They have they cannot talk to anybody. They're super not allowed to talk to people. Like there's all these rules they have to abide by and stuff. And you're like, well, wait. And he's saying that he said one thing that I thought was interesting. He said that basically that he's had to pay like double taxes on everything because they don't pay the taxes when they
Right.
have to reimburse him on things. So he's paying the taxes on
Right.
it
It's-
and
it's
then
not-
paying
it's
the
not
taxes.
just-
at
it's
the
not
end,
just
too.
wrestling.
Like
Rocks.
you have to pay your taxes on your per diem and
Yeah.
all of that
but
stuff.
It's not just wrestling, by the way, because I worked for The Bachelor for years, for 6 years. I was never an employee of the company.
That's
I was-
crazy.
I was an independent contractor producer. I was there every day, except when we had little breaks in between the shows, which was maybe a month or so. But I was an independent producer, independent contractor for the 6 years that I was
See,
there.
I feel like in the entertainment industry, when that's done, it's a little less sketch because there's so many shows that you
Sure.
can independently contract yourself
and a
to.
show could go
and
away
a show
tomorrow
could go away
if the
tomorrow,
rating-
and,
yeah,
exact,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they can't pay you. But
Yeah.
like with wrestling, there's for a long time there's one big company.
And it's
you
been
know?
going on for. That's right. That's exactly right. Because, for example, for The Bachelor that I just gave, there's 1,000 different shows out there. There's nobody.
And there's no
tons of
one
people
going, it's
up
been my
against it.
lifelong dream to work at The Bachelor, so I'm just going to take it.
Right.
You know, like.
But my question is there another sport? Because you're comparing it to another reality show, but is there
Well,
another?
but wrestling
both-
though is its
they're
own
TV shows.
But wrestling
No,
is
it definitely
Yeah.
is, but your chance of injury is very high. And
Yes.
The Bachelor, you're not sitting there
No.
in that room thinking like, oh, somebody's gonna tackle me. Through
no.
this." And I might be screwed.
There's like no risk as opposed to
All of the risk. So
Yeah,
is there
all
another sport in which?
no. There's no other sport.
I
That's
compare it
what
more
it's
to
about
like
NFL.
being like a stunt person in Hollywood,
Right.
you know, where
Right.
like, and those people are super protected in Hollywood,
Yeah.
and Hollywood doesn't care about wrestlers because it's fake, and you're like,
yeah.
but
But the
why wasn't
difference with
Hollywood? It's
stunt-
one of if you look at the ratings
Yeah.
every week, WWE's in the top 3
Ever.
every
Yeah.
time it's on.
Well, and John Oliver said in that thing, the fucking WrestleMania ranks higher than the World Series.
Yeah.
It's like the number 6 biggest sporting event.
And if people didn't care about the players and those things,
Yeah.
there'd be outrage. And for
I know.
some reason, it's like, oh, we don't care. Like they're just wrestlers who hit themselves for a living. Idiots.
I know.
Garbage people.
Well, I also the other thing is I don't think that people actually know to the extent, and that's why I think John Oliver did very well. I don't think people knew to that extent of how this like the independent contractor thing. I don't think a lot of people know.
No.
I
Because the
guarantee you,
wrestlers,
Riley didn't know that.
They do not talk about it.
No.
They are
No,
not
why
allowed
would
to.
they?
They don't
Yeah.
open their mouths.
Right.
They're all like part of this society. For me to even get them on one-on-one like friend time to say anything, I
Right.
have to torture them.
Right.
Like and pick and prod. They say nothing
Right.
bad about the company
Yeah.
ever.
Well, no,
No.
because they don't want to bite the hand that feeds
And
them.
they're worried you're gonna
Which I
tell
get.
someone else, and it's gonna go back to them because wrestling's so gossipy or whatever.
Right.
It's silly.
Yeah.
It's very silly.